Hi, this is Lisa from Loops Needlepoint. Today I'm going to demonstrate for you a stitch called the Woven Ribbons Stitch. This is a very effective stitch that gives a great woven pattern. It can be done in a single color, it can be done in multiple colors. Different threads give different effects. It's a very versatile stitch, so it's great. Also, it uses very large stitches, so it's good when you have a big area that you need to fill in, such as a background, or maybe a couch, or a dress, or different elements of your design like that. So let's see how it goes. Today I'm going to be stitching for you on 13 mesh canvas. I'm using DMC embroidery floss with a 9-strand thickness. Now this stitch always uses vertical stitches. So one thing to keep in mind with that is that while, for example, this 9-strand thickness is very good when I do diagonal stitches at covering the canvas, with vertical stitches it won't cover completely. Now, people deal with this in different ways. For some, that's a feature, that it doesn't cover the canvas, and they like seeing the canvas through. So one thing that you can do with that is plan the color of the canvas to show through the thread so that it's an accent. Some people prefer more coverage, and they'll try to use a thicker thread to get the better coverage. We'll see how that works. Today I'm specifically working on with a dark thread on a white canvas so that you will see how the stitches work and see how the canvas shows through. Now you'll see I also drew a curve on my canvas that I'll be working on. This is to show you as we go how I'll compensate the stitch later on. So as I said, all of the stitches are going to be vertical stitches, and the pattern is basically woven rectangles. So let's start with our first rectangle. Let's say the stitch were to start here. So with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover 2 canvas threads. 1, 2, and then I'm going to go in. And everything is going to be vertical, which many people find easier than diagonal stitching. Okay? So my first one is a 2-stitch. My next one, I'm growing my rectangle. So the next one is going to be a 4-stitch. I'm going to start in the next column over, but one down from where I was before. And I'm going to cross over 4 canvas threads. 1, 2, 3, 4, and go in. Now, as long as I'm incrementing by even numbers, then I know if I start one below where I was, then I'll end one above where I was. So for example, my next stitch is a 6-stitch. I was 2, 4, and I'm going 6. So I'm going to go down 1, and I don't even have to count because I know 6 will take me up 1 from where I was before. All right, my next stitch is going to be an 8. Again, I'm going to go down 1 from where I did my previous stitch, and I'm going to end up 1 from the last stitch. Okay, now you can already see how the canvas does show through between the lines. As I pull it taut, it will show through a little bit more. So we could make that part of the element of the design. All right, so now this is the corner of my first rectangle. And 8 is the biggest that I'm going to get for this. So I have 2 more 8 stitches. But this one, I'm going to start it 1 up from where I was before. The side of my rectangle is going to go here along the diagonal. So I've gone 1 up, and I'm going to end 1 up. That's my second 8 stitch, and I have 3 8 stitches, so I have to do that once again, where I start 1 higher than before, and I end 1 higher than before. All right, we can already start to see the rectangle starting to form there. But that's it. Now I want to get smaller again. So my next stitch is going to be a 6. I'm still continuing 1 up from where I was before, but this time I'm going to end 1 lower. I can do it this way, thinking lower or higher, or I can count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I go in here. Okay, that was a 6, so my next one is a 4. I go up 1 from the previous stitch, and I'm going to end 1 lower than the previous one. Oops. And my last stitch for this rectangle is a 2. it goes one up from the previous one, over 2 canvas lines, and I end one lower than the one before. And there you go. Now I have my first rectangle of the design. Okay, so this pattern is a series of rectangles with, let's call it a joining stitch in between them. And you could even do the joining stitch in a different color. Today I'm going to do everything in the same color, so we can see how that looks. But I could do the joining stitch in a different color. The joining stitch is going to be another 2-stitch. Again, in the column right next to where I was before, I'm going to go down one from my previous stitch, and it's just a 2-stitch, 1, 2, and I go back in. That's it. Now I'm going to start the next rectangle. Again, it started with a 2-stitch, and I'm going in one below my joining stitch. And you can also see that this lines up directly across from where the previous rectangle started. And it's going to be the same thing again. I go 2, my pattern was 2, 4, 6, 8, so that one's a 2. My 4 starts one below and ends one above. That's 4. My 6, same thing. I go one below and end one above. And finally, my largest stitch, which was the 8, I start one below and end one above. Okay, now remember we had 3 8 stitches before. So I'm going to do 2 more 8s. That goes one above from where I had previously been, and one above at the top. Now you can see I'm getting close to this curved line. Let's say this was, I wanted the blue only to go up to that curved line. It looks like I'm just going to make it with this rectangle. So I have my one more 8 stitch, and that goes right up there. Great. And now I'm going down to 6. And I've done 3 8s, so now I go to 6. I go one above where I was before, but this time I'm going to go one below, or 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right in there. My next one is a 4. So again, one above and one below. And my last stitch is a 2. One above and one below. So I have my 2 rectangles with that little joining stitch in the middle. I'm going to do one more rectangle going across this way so we can see what happens as I hit the line here. Okay, so first I have the joining stitch, which I go one below where I started before. And this is just a 2-stitch, so I go over 2 canvas lines and back in. And I do the same thing to start my next rectangle. I go one below and 1, 2, I go back in. Okay. Now I'm going to start growing my rectangle. So one below and one above. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now my next stitch has to be a 6. However, or it should be a 6, but I don't have room for that. So the way compensating works is you try to follow your pattern as closely as you can, but when you run out of space, you just do the best that you can, as long a stitch as will fit in there. So here I was supposed to do a 6. I'm supposed to start one below. And if I had all the space in the world, I'd do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I would go in up here, but that's over the line that I want it to be. So in this case, even though it should be a 6, I'm actually only going to be doing a 5. Okay, now my next one should have been an 8. It should go one below where I was before, and it should go way up high, but I just don't have the space for it, so I'm going to take it as high as I can. Now I can decide in my design if I want to go over that line or under that line, if I want to include it or not. That'll be up to me. Okay, and that's my lowest point. As you can see, the lowest point of all the rectangles falls along the same line of the canvas. Okay? So that's my 8. Now, It should have been an 8. I'm going to call it the 8 anyway, because that was my longest corner stitch. Now I should be getting shorter, so I'm going to go up 1 from where my previous one was. This one should be a 6, but again, I don't have room for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would have brought me all the way up here. But again, I can only go this high, so that's as high as I'm going to go. And my next one should be a 4, so I should go in here. I can only go, let's say 3 here. And my next one should be a 2, goes up and it should be a 2, but here I can only do 1. And that's the best I can do. Okay, so that's how I compensate that stitch. Now, let's say I wanted to keep going, I would have the joining stitch next, which goes 1 below the previous stitch, and then over 2, 1, 2. So there's my join, and I could start the next rectangle. Now this next rectangle also, the beginning stitches are going to get cut off because of where my line is. All right, now let's see how the next row of this stitch works. A good place to start for my next row is to start at the lowest point of the previous row. This lowest point is going to correspond to the shortest corner stitch of my next rectangle. Okay, so here I'm going to do my next stitch, which should have been a 2. So I've gone down 2 canvas lines and then in. Now I like to do it that way because it's always best to come up through a clean hole when you have the opportunity, a hole that has no other threads in it, and to go back down in through the dirty hole, which is the hole that has a thread in it. The reason for this is you have less chance of bringing up fibers from the underneath of the canvas to the top, like the loose ends and things like that, or a different color, which can happen. So I like it better to count down 2 rows, come up here, and then go back in through the one that's already has the stitch in it. So that's my 2 stitch, the corner of the next rectangle. So now I want to do a 4. For my 4, I'm going to go down 1 from before. And, well, I could count 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but I also know I'm going to be joining right in there with the previous rectangle. That's 2, 4. My next was 6, so that's going to go 1 down. And all the way up, it's going to go right in there and share it. Once I have the pattern set, I don't have to count each time. Okay. 8 is going to go down 1 from before and join there. Now I have my 2 more 8 stitches. So these start up, whereas before I was going on a diagonal this way, now I'm going to be working on a diagonal this way. So I'm going to go here, 1 stitch higher than before, and into the stitch right above it. I have 1 more long stitch to do. Again, 1 hole up from the previous stitch, and then into the stitch that's already been filled. Okay, that's my 3 long stitches. Now I'm going to start getting shorter, and I'm going to have to get shorter if I follow this diagonal because this diagonal is coming down that way. So I'm automatically going to get shorter as I follow the diagonal. This one will automatically be a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And my next one, as I follow that diagonal up, is going to be a 4. And finally I have that 2 stitch. So we can start to see the pattern emerging here of the rectangles in opposite directions. My next stitch is going to be the join stitch. That goes down 1 from the previous one, and it's a short 2 stitch. And again, I've got to go down for my corner stitch and in there. And now I've started my next rectangle. So my next stitch is 4. It goes down 1 from the previous, and up into the stitch directly above. That's my 4. I'm going to go down 1, up to 6, down 1 more, and up to 8. All right, looks like I'm running out of thread here, so hang on just a minute and I will get some more and be right back. All right, now we're back in business. So we had just finished 2, 4, 6, 8, so I'm at my 8 stitches, which means I have to start that along that diagonal up. So I'm going up and all the way up to the joining stitch. That's my second 8. I'm going to go up again for my third 8. And now I'm just going to keep continuing on that diagonal, and I will automatically start counting down. That was a 6. This one's a 4. And here's that 2 stitch. All right, and if I wanted to keep continuing, I would have my join stitch. That's the one that goes down 1 and then up there to that join. And there you go. So you can start to see how it looks like these ribbons are woven into each other. And if I could keep continuing it, I could continue down, across, up. When I get to these areas here, where there's little pieces that I need to compensate, so for those, again, I would just do as big as I can do. I know these were supposed to be a rectangle, so it should have been longer stitches, but since I can't, I'll just fill them in as stitches, or 1, or whatever I have the space for. So I might do something like this, just to make sure that every vertical row is filled. So that's the woven ribbon stitch. And I just want to point out again how you can note that how you can see the canvas through the stitches. Some areas, depending on your thread, like here my thread must have been more twisted, so I'll see more of the canvas. Here it was flattened better, so it hides it better. But that can happen. You can get some irregularity of seeing the canvas through. But for example, if I had done this in a white or off-white, then that wouldn't have made much of a difference. Or, as I said, I could have picked it specifically contrasting or complementary color of the canvas to show through so that I could get that interesting effect. Here's another version of the stitch. This one I have done also with the DMC embroidery floss, but this time I did it with a double thickness, so there are 12 strands. You can see that the coverage of the canvas is much better. I also did it with 3 different colors, 2 different DMCs, and I used a cranic metallic for that little joining stitch. So you can see there's a lot of different variations you can do with this stitch to get different effects. So have fun with it. Let me know if you have any questions.